In this week's episode, Nintendo have placed an expiry date on the Wii U and 3DS stores. Sony are back in our bad books with some rather deceptive business practices, and Sega are exiting the arcade business after over 5 decades. I'm Barry, and this is episode 50 of the Retro Gaming Dads podcast, a podcast for everything retro and retro-inspired. As I'm sure you've noticed, it's just me this week. Don't worry, Anthony will be back next week, so you just gotta grin and bear it just this once. First up, Nintendo have announced that they are going to be closing the Wii U and 3DS eShops at the end of March 2023. Now, this is something I found quite surprising because the 3DS was one of Nintendo's best-selling consoles, and there's plenty of games on both these systems, in fact, that you just can't get anywhere else. The 3DS isn't the sort of system that translates well to, say, the Switch. The closure of the shops isn't going to be just a hard cut-off date at the end of March next year. Instead, they're going to actually progress through a couple of phases, with the first one starting on the 23rd of May this year. After that date, they will no longer allow you to use a credit card to add funds to your eShop account. Now, it's not entirely clear if that's just credit cards or credit and debit cards. However, after that, starting the 29th of August, they will no longer allow you to redeem eShop cards which have a fund amount. You'll still be able to redeem cards which give you a game outright, but you won't be able to, say, redeem one for a $10 amount. And then finally, at the end of March 2023, you will no longer be able to download games, add-ons, DLC, or demos through the eShops. This only affects the Wii U and the 3DS, so Switch owners have nothing to worry about. And while this is a bit disappointing, it's not that unsurprising. The Switch has now been Nintendo's dominant console, replacing essentially both the Wii U and the 3DS, and we're 5 years into its lifespan now. So while it's unfortunate, it is something that we've talked about many times. We saw this coming from a mile away. And this isn't too dissimilar to what Sony was planning on doing last year when they were going to close the PlayStation 3, PSP and the Vita stores. However, with quite a lot of backlash against them, they did actually decide to keep those stores running for a little bit longer, with only the PSP store closing. However, I can't see Nintendo actually backing down from this. Which is a shame, because if Sony can keep the PlayStation 3 store up and running when the console was released in 2006, why is it that Nintendo can't do the same with the Wii U, which was released 6 years later in 2012? I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think that Nintendo actually have an obligation to keep these eShops up and running? Especially when they have quite a strong stance against being able to find alternative ways to put these titles onto your console. I say there's plenty of digital-only titles that once these stores go, you will not be able to get legitimately, which is a massive shame. And again, this goes back into video games. They should be preserved. And oddly enough, I don't understand why Nintendo aren't at the forefront of preserving these. These are our digital heritage. Well, moving on to Nintendo's newer console, the Switch. Sony's MLB The Show 2022 is actually coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this is a bit of an odd one. It's a baseball game which isn't my sort of game. However, we are going to see a PlayStation Studios title released not only on the Xbox this year, but on the Switch for the very first time. Again, this goes hand in hand with how we're always talking about the boundaries between one console and another actually starting to blur more and more as this generation just goes on. It is absolutely insane that I can have 2 games on my Switch, one of them published by Microsoft Studios and another one published by PlayStation Studios. Now, overall, the game, it looks okay. It definitely takes a graphical hit over the Xbox One, Series S and X, and PlayStation 4 and 5 versions. There's no doubt about that. But It looks like it plays well. The animation looks really good, really well done. So if you're into that sort of game, maybe pick it up for the Switch. However, if you are a member of Game Pass Ultimate, it will be included day one on the subscription service. Now, going back to Sony, they've been getting a lot of criticism recently for a bit of a shady practice that they've been doing around the highly praised Horizon Forbidden West. Now, it's no secret that getting a hold of a PlayStation 5 is nigh on impossible at the moment. So there's still many Sony fans that are holding on to the PlayStation 4s or the PlayStation 4 Pros that are really looking forward at getting hold of Horizon and plan to upgrade in the future. So to alleviate their concerns, Jim Ryan previously announced that anyone who purchases Horizon Forbidden West on the PlayStation 4 will be entitled to a free upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version. However, the way they went around this is at best anti-consumer and at worst an absolute scam. So initially they were going to hide this free upgrade behind a paywall, so you would only be entitled to it if you purchased some of the higher tiered versions of the game. However, they rolled that back and announced that if you buy one game on, say, the PlayStation 4, you'll get the PS5 version for free, and vice versa. If you got the PlayStation 5 version, you'll be entitled to the PlayStation 4 version as well, which is all well and good. That's how it should be, and that's how it works on the Xbox. So for those that don't know, the main rival, Microsoft, offers something called Smart Delivery. And what that does is it gives you the very best version of the title for the console that you're running on. So if you've got an older Xbox One, then you'll just get the standard texture packs downloaded to your console. But if you have an Xbox One X, those texture packs will be the 4K enhanced ones. And if you're lucky enough to own an Xbox Series X or S, then And if you're lucky enough to own an SSD-enabled Xbox Series X or S, then they will remove the redundant files from it, so you get slightly smaller file sizes. So while you only purchase the game once, as you move from console to console, you will get the best version of that game tailored for that particular console. Unfortunately, this is not how Sony do it. Instead, what they do is they will give you a digital version of each game, one the PlayStation 4 version and one the PlayStation 5. Now, that in itself, while not ideal, isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all, although Sony have announced that this will be the last title that will give you a free upgrade to the next generation version. If you buy any future titles, say Gran Turismo 7, you will have to pay a $10 upgrade fee. However, the way they're going about this is where a lot of people have the issues. If you're a PlayStation 4 owner and you go to the PlayStation Store and you search for Horizon Forbidden West, you'll see it there, advertised, front and center, $60, and you get a free upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version should you upgrade your console in the future. Nothing wrong with that. However, PlayStation 5 owners have noticed if you go to the store on that console, you get funneled along to purchase the PlayStation 5 version with a free downgrade, if you would, to the PlayStation 4 version. So, although they're technically two different SKUs, they are the same product. Both of them give you both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 digital editions. However, purchasing it on the PlayStation 5 will cost you $10 extra. It will cost you $70. So, why is this? Why are they funneling the customers to two different price points, depending on what console they're actually running, and charging them two different prices for the exact same product? Now, you could argue, well, the PlayStation 5 version, it's a $70 game, and to sell it on the PlayStation 4, they had to hit that $60 price point that everyone's become accustomed to over the last generation. That's fine to say that, but the fact that they are selling the exact same product for two different prices is frankly disgusting. And I know we tend to go on about a lot of negative news around Sony, but over the last few months, a lot of our PlayStation news was actually really, really positive. And then they just go and do this, and it's disheartening. And I wouldn't be surprised if they walked back this decision and just priced both editions at $60. But for anyone who is looking to purchase it through the app. Do not purchase it through the PlayStation 5 because they will charge you $10 extra just for that privilege. And that is ridiculous. They are essentially stealthily sneaking in that $10 upgrade fee that they said they're going to do with future titles. Don't buy it through the console. Do not support this. This is absolutely terrible. Now, before I go on to our last Sega-focused bit of news, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to everyone who's listening to this podcast. As always, we ask that you leave us a review on your favourite podcasting app. It'll only take a minute, and it's really appreciated. And if you would like to support us further and get ad-free versions of this podcast, then you can visit our Patreon and become a member for as little as £1 per month. Every little helps, and we would really appreciate it. But with that, let's just get back to the news. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is coming out in cinemas in just over 6 weeks from now. However, Paramount are already talking about its sequel, and they've confirmed that the sequel is already in the works, and if that wasn't enough, fans of everyone's favourite red echidna, Knuckles, is also going to get his own Paramount Plus live action series. Now, between this and the Halo TV series, I think Paramount Plus is pretty much becoming the place to go and watch high quality video game based series. Now, there isn't any footage for this, and I don't believe it's actually in production. It's probably in pre-production at the moment, but I'm really excited to go and watch it. And if you haven't seen it, there was actually a new trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 film, which was shown during the Super Bowl. It's fantastic to see. Not only do you see what I believe to be Angel Island, but you see the Death Egg robot, and oh my, it looks fantastic. The only thing I think is missing now is Shadow, but hopefully they will save him for maybe the third film. That would be a good way to introduce them, since they're introducing both Tails and Knuckles into the second one. So, although this year isn't the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog any longer, it's still a great time to be a Sonic fan. Because don't forget, we are also getting Sonic Frontiers later in the year. The Sonic Prime Netflix show is still on its way. Plus, we're getting at least 2 new movies and an upcoming live-action series around Knuckles. Not only that as well, as a bit of an oddity, a pickup that I got this week, I've noticed that there is a version of Sonic Team Racing that comes with a special 30th anniversary art book showing various artwork and sprite work from a selection of the games. Now, this is only a small little art book that's bundled into it, but I didn't actually see Sega announce it. I could have very well missed it though. But it's a nice little art book, 30 pages, so I picked that game up. It only cost about £20, and definitely worth it for a Sonic fan. Another series that I really loved when I was a child was the Wonder Boy series. Now, this is a series that has a bit of a convoluted naming convention to it, but Wonder Boy and Monster World and Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap were fantastic titles, and hopefully we may be getting a collection with the ESRB actually giving a E for Everyone rating for a new Wonder Boy collection for the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. Now, the actual rating doesn't give an awful lot away, except its rating and a small paragraph that reads, "This is a collection of 4 action platformers in which players help characters save the land from monsters. Players traverse side-scrolling environments and use weapons, e.g. spears, stone axes, swords, to defeat small enemies, e.g. skeletons, giant insects, octopuses. Enemies generally fall from the screen or dissipate into puffs of smoke when defeated. Boss battles include more protracted combat. In one game, players' characters can visit a store and purchase items, including beer and cocktails." Now, the fact that it actually mentions stone axes makes me think that some of the earlier Wonder Boy titles will be in here, but hopefully we will get maybe 2 or 3 Monster World games. However, I'm not sure what titles they would include. It would probably be Wonder Boy in Monsterland and Wonder Boy in Monster World, just with Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap having not 1 but 2 recent remakes and reimaginings, and Monster World 4 having a full 3D remake recently as well. Either way, it's one I'm interested in, it's one I'll keep an eye out on, and I'm looking forward to picking it up. Now, our final piece of news is a very sad piece of news. As I'm sure anyone who's been following recently, the world has been in a pandemic and gatherings of people have been less popular than they have been in previous years. And as a result, Sega's arcade business in Japan has suffered greatly. Now, last year we talked about how a company called Glenda Inc. had actually snapped up 81.5% of the shares in Sega Entertainment. This is the division that actually runs the arcade outlets. So the ones that you always see with the bright red fascias to them, what a lot of people think when they think of the gaming scene in Japan. Now, Sega Sammy have actually sold the remaining 14.9% of shares in Sega Entertainment to Glenda, which gives them full control of it and marks Sega's departure from what a lot of people remember them for, arcades. Now, this marks the end of 56 years of Sega Arcades, which is going to be really devastating. Personally, I've always wanted to go to Japan, and one of the big draws for me to actually visit Japan was to visit these arcades. I do remember visiting one in Sydney, I believe it was, Sega World, which was in the late 1990s. And it wasn't just an arcade, it was kind of like an amusement park within an arcade. And as a teenager, I found it absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, I'll never be able to experience that again, and I'll never be able to take Elliot and experience it. Although, in all fairness, when he's old enough, he'll probably just look at an arcade machine and go, what is this? You have to pay money to play games, and you can only play the one game that's selected on it. Where's the fun in that? Fortunately, the arcades aren't actually going completely, with the Sega Entertainment division being rebranded as Glenda Geigo Entertainment, and the surviving Sega Arcades being rebranded as Geigo Centers. Now, I understand they'll probably overall be the same experience, but there was something iconic about that Sega logo that was plastered all over the building, and I'm going to miss that. Well, unfortunately, that bit of a downer does bring this episode to a close. As always, information on everything that I've talked about in this episode can be found in the full show notes available at retrogamingdad.co.uk. I've been the Retro Gaming Dad, and I'll catch you next time.